The sign was hand-painted on a piece of cardboard. It read, "The Observer's Paradox. Enter if you dare." For a 12-year-old like me, Leo, a dare was an invitation I could never refuse. My friends, Chloe and Sam, stood back, giggling nervously in the bright, clean hallway of the pop-up art gallery. It was one of those weird, modern places that showed up for a month and then disappeared. This exhibit was tucked away in the back, behind a heavy black door. "It's probably just a bunch of weird paintings," Chloe whispered. "Or it's locked," Sam added, ever the pessimist. I just grinned, pushed my glasses up my nose, and turned the cold brass knob. The door wasn't locked. It swung inward with a low groan, revealing a darkness that seemed to swallow the light from the hallway. I took a step inside. "See, nothing to be afraid of," I called back to them. Then the door clicked shut behind me with a sound like a bone snapping. The lock sliding into place was loud and final. For a moment I was in total blackness. Then lights flickered on, but they weren't normal lights. They shifted, pulsing from a sickly green to a deep bruised purple, then to a nervous orange. The room was small, tight, and I felt the walls pressing in on me immediately. And the walls, they were covered, every single inch, with old newspaper clippings. They were yellowed with age, and all their edges were blackened and curled, as if they'd been rescued from a massive fire. The air was thick with the smell of burnt paper, dust, and something else. A sharp, electric smell, like the air after a thunderstorm. In the center of the room, two old-fashioned televisions were stacked on top of each other, the kind with big dials and rabbit-ear antennas. The top TV was just a screen of buzzing, angry static, a constant hiss and crackle that filled the small space. The bottom TV was different. It would show the same frantic static for a few seconds, then the screen would clear, revealing a silent, breathtaking view of deep space. A cosmic void, dark and endless, filled with tiny twinkling lights that looked more like glitter than stars. Then it would fizz back to static. Static, space, static, space, over and over. "Okay, Leo, you got this," I whispered to myself. My heart was beating a little faster, but I wasn't scared, not really. This was just an escape room, a very creative one. The newspapers were the clues. The TVs were part of the puzzle. I was smart. I could figure it out. I started with the walls, running my fingers over the brittle paper. The headlines were strange. "World holds its breath." Strange lights reported in every major city. "The Great Silence begins." It was all very dramatic, good props. I looked for codes, for numbers circled, for anything that looked like a clue to a lock combination. But there was nothing. Just story after story about a world slowly falling into a quiet panic over something in the sky. An hour passed, or maybe two. Time felt weird in the pulsing light. The constant hiss of the static was starting to feel like 1,000 whispers just beyond my hearing. The claustrophobia was getting real. I banged on the door. "Hello, I'm done. Let me out." My voice sounded small in the buzzing room. Only the static answered. Panic began to prickle at the back of my neck. This wasn't fun anymore. I turned my attention back to the newspapers, desperate now. I started noticing a detail I'd missed. A date. It was printed under every single headline, on every single clipping, no matter the newspaper name. And on one of them, near the floor, the date was circled with a faded red marker. My blood went cold. This wasn't a history of something that happened. This was now. My eyes darted to the bottom TV, which had just switched from static to the cosmic void. It was beautiful, but it wasn't a screensaver. I stared at it, really stared, and I realized the twinkling lights were drifting, moving, and in the center of the void, there was a patch of darkness that was darker than the rest, an emptiness that seemed to pull the light into it. As I watched, I felt a deep, chilling certainty that something in that darkness was aware of me. It felt like a giant eye opening in space, and it was looking right at me through the glass of the television. I stumbled back, tripping over my own feet. My gaze fell on the top TV, the one with the constant static. As I watched, horrified, the static flickered. For just 1 second, a clear image appeared. It was a security camera view of a street, my street. I recognized Mrs. Gable's prize-winning roses in her front yard, but the houses were all dark, the cars were still, and the sky above my street wasn't blue. It was the same swirling, twinkling, terrifying cosmic void from the other television. Suddenly, everything clicked into place with a horrifying snap. The room wasn't an escape room. It wasn't a trap. The newspapers weren't props telling a fake story. They were warnings. The day the stars came down. Last voices heard from London. The burnt edges weren't from a fire in here. They were from whatever was happening out there. This room, this wasn't a prison. It was a shelter. The static on the top TV wasn't just noise. It was a shield, blocking something out. The cosmic void on the bottom TV wasn't a picture. It was a live feed, a window to the outside. The person who built this room wasn't trying to keep someone in. They were trying to keep something out. And then the single most terrifying thing happened. Click. The heavy lock on the door disengaged. The door swung slowly open, bathing the newspaper-covered floor in the dim, normal light of the gallery hallway. Freedom! I could just walk out. I crept to the doorway and peered out. The gallery was silent and dark. The main power was off. The only light came from the big glass front doors. I could see the street outside. It was supposed to be the middle of the afternoon, but the sky was black, a deep, star-dusted black, exactly like the one on the TV. A low, humming vibration started, shaking the floor beneath my feet. From the far end of the dark gallery, I heard a sound, a wet, skittering noise. It was too heavy to be a rat, too sharp to be a person shuffling. It was the sound of something with too many legs, dragging itself through the dark. I looked at the open door, at the silent, alien world that used to be my home. Then I looked back into the small, claustrophobic room. I looked at the pulsing, unnatural light, the walls covered in scorched warnings, and the two televisions, one a window to the horror outside, the other a shield of buzzing static that felt, all of a sudden, like the most comforting sound in the universe. The puzzle was solved. The answer wasn't a code or a key. The answer was a choice. The skittering sound got closer. I didn't hesitate. I scrambled back inside the room and grabbed the edge of the heavy door. With all my strength, I pulled it shut, plunging myself back into the buzzing, pulsing dark. The last thing I heard from the outside world was the heavy thump of the lock sliding home. I wasn't trapped anymore. I was safe.